Well, I've been in office before. I served 8 years, actually with the mayor, as an at-large member of city council. And what I've seen lately is that we're seeing an increase in accelerated growth, and we're seeing a really big rise in cost in affordable housing, attainable housing. And that's really what kind of moved me forward to say, let me look at this. And then when the mayor has run 7 times, this will be his 8th term, he hasn't had a lot of competition, hadn't had a lot of accountability in elections, and I think people need choices to decide where we grow from here. And so really for me, I stepped in because I was hearing from people that the concern over traffic and congestion, but accelerated growth and sprawl, and just the rising prices. We're the 9th highest eviction rate in the country, and so we're seeing the trickle down of those pricing for people trying to live here. So it's not just people in poverty; it's people who, seniors on fixed income, veterans on fixed income. It's teachers, police, firemen. I think teachers' starting salary is $47,000 a year, and they don't make the new area median income is $89,000, which makes market prices go up for things. I think rents doubled from 21 to 22. They can't afford to live here. In Fairfield County, they're doing a really creative project of building some teacher apartments with some subsidies in them. So it's through the school district. But I'd like to see how we might partner with the school district to offer such pilot. They're doing it in Clemson University, at Clemson in the city, and they're doing it in Anderson. So I think we surely could look at that here in Greenville. So for police and fire, starting salary of police is like $42,000. I would love to see us maybe negotiate with some existing apartments who have space that we might be able to offer subsidy to have some police who want to live in the city be able to do that. I think that would enhance safety, but also if we don't pay them enough to live in the city, we're asking them to serve and protect. I think we ought to look at what other things we can do. So that kind of moved me. And then Upstate Forever, who did the study of the upstate in 2017 with Clemson University, talked about if we continue to use our development footprint to develop at the rate we're going, and by 2040 we will have doubled it, which means we lose green space, probably tree canopy, the things that make Greenville so unique, and the character of nature. One of our most valuable assets is the waterfall. One of my first acts on city council was to vote to take down the Camperdown Bridge. Got a lot of flack for that. Even my next door neighbor called me and said, "You can't take down a perfectly good bridge." And I said, "Yes, you can. There's a waterfall." And he goes, "Oh, no." And so when you get past the initial decision and you present a vision, and the Falls Park thing was born from there, Liberty Bridge. And we really worked closely in coalition with the Carolina Foothills Garden Club, who'd been down there for years. So they helped kind of direct traffic about what the plan could be. They also raised money to help make sure we had enough funds to do hardscape and public art. And so they really stepped in to help. I think that's the beauty of Greenville, is that we have public-private collaborations all the time, and I think that's what makes us strong. And the other piece on rising prices is in relation to small business. So I had a small business for 11 years. After I left the newspaper, and I sold it to an employee, but I've met a payroll. I know what people are up against. But rising rents are challenging people. And so we're seeing downtown where people are struggling to stay open. What happens then is they go away, and here comes national retailers with great deep pockets that change the character of Main Street. And I really think that that's what's made us be loved by tourists who come, is the first original mom and pop stores. Ayers Leather, I think, is the longest serving open retail space, and she's moved around and still survived. But restaurants and bookstores, and so we've had a lot of that early investment. What can we do to help stabilize them? Do we need to look at our business license fees to see? We do a lot for developers. What can we do for small business? And I'd like to see plans for that and work with small business all over the city, not just downtown. So, we're looking at a lot of challenges with, we're a postcard city on every top 10 list. People want to come here and see what we've done, and that's all well and good, but let's take care of the things that are not as attractive, like aging sewer pipes that are over 100 years old. Stormwater continues to grow. We have to deal with that. Those are not fun to talk about. Potholes are not fun to talk about, but they're also not partisan. Those things, in order for a developer to come in and do projects, they don't want to build on top of 100-year-old sewer pipes. But we also want to see those infrastructure pieces spread fairly throughout the city, not just in a certain zip code or a certain neighborhood. That we want people in Sterling have been critical of the city because there was a new development of multifamily apartments. And in order for that to be built, the requirement was they had to widen the road. And I was at a neighborhood meeting where a woman named Lucinda Martin stood up and said, "Do you mean to tell me that we've lived here for 40 years on that little road, and you didn't care if we burned up or our children burned up, but now suddenly you're going to help this new developer?" So I think there needs to be a fundamental fairness in sidewalks and infrastructure and in parks, and being able to have spurs to even Unity Park, Falls Park, Cancer Park, that can help people get to them safely. So the people in the West End are struggling to get across Academy, which is a dangerous street to cross. When I was the interim director of a Child's Haven, I was that, but this time I was at the Children's Museum. So all of Heritage Green got together to ask the city to help us manage the traffic that was flying in on Buncombe Street, going 50 in a 35-mile zone where you can't safely cross from a neighborhood to Heritage Green. And then also from Academy Street, with a 10-second crosswalk, people who stayed at the Hyatt couldn't bring their children to the Children's Museum. And nothing happened. And now suddenly we have a 19-story apartment building coming, and they're calling it a corridor. And so why do we have to wait for a development to happen to take care of the safety issues in our transportation arenas? Academy Street's really a concrete collar around the city, and we need to do some things with that. So fundamental fairness in infrastructure dollars should go across all the city. And so we will, when I'm mayor, I will make sure that those things get distributed in a fair and methodical way. You don't have to just be because you know somebody. I want to be, as a city, continue to be sought out for how'd you do this beautiful thing. We have a waterfall, we have the river, but I want them to seek us out because we have solutions to some of the problems they're all facing too. So affordable housing is an issue across the whole country. It's a crisis. It's pushing people out of neighborhoods. It's pushing more homelessness to happen in the city. And so when you have an eviction, and that goes on your record, you are ineligible to receive a federal housing voucher. So one thing I'd like to do is in Charleston, they've been doing a housing court that's now been approved by the state Supreme Court to do statewide. And in that, they're assigning people legal representation, which they have not had in evictions heretofore. And during that representation, they possibly could work with the landlord to stop the eviction. They also can remove eviction from records to help. That is a barrier to people getting into housing. So the increase in homelessness falls to the nonprofits who are trying to serve them. The United Ministries, Salvation Army, Miracle Hill, Triune Mercy Center, all those people who are doing such important work know the homeless and know what's needed, but they then end up needing more funds to provide it, and not necessarily funds are available. So I would say that the rising cost has an exponential ripple effect on our whole community, and there's some things we can do. There's some things we can create. That kind of solution I'd love for other cities to come share with us. How did you make that happen? And I'll say we have a lot of universities and colleges in our upstate region, frankly, all over the state. We're a small state. I would love to see more cooperation with Clemson University. They've done urban planning, they do parks and rec, they get ready to do a vet school. When I worked for the hospital system, I was part of philanthropy working on the medical school before it was approved. And as that came into fruition, was a transformational piece of healthcare here. And I feel like Greenville has seen many sectors boosted, so healthcare, aviation, automotive certainly, people in textiles who were able to reinvent themselves to kind of match up with automotive, tier 1 through 4 suppliers. So we're seeing the opportunities here. The other piece I'll say is we have a brain drain. So South Carolina is losing over 40% of its graduates to other states. And what I would like to say is let's work with the universities and colleges, not when they graduate, when they've got the robe on. Let's get them when they're freshmen. Really, let's go back to high school and help them navigate internships or what are the possibilities here, and work really closely with the Chamber, Upstate Alliance, 10 at the top, that our corporations are sitting here looking for a workforce. Let's help make sure we build it.